Well, I need to get to the West Coast. I said we try to keep you here for 30-ish minutes and don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm a Mountain West guy, I'm a PAC guy, and I got to get your thoughts on some of this as well, Immaculate. So let's start with, in terms of the PAC, let's start there because that's maybe the biggest unknown right now. Do you have any take on where you think they're at with additions, media value? We just dropped an episode on Monday that kind of questioned the leadership, and I get it. They want to be tight-lipped, as I said in that episode. The PAC fans and the supporters, they say, hey, they're being tight-lipped because they're going to do everything right. We trust Gould and the leaders and the ADs and all that kind of stuff. And then the naysayers, say, wow, they're lost. And so, again, you talk about the Wild West. The speculation on the PAC right now is very much the Wild West. So do you have any thoughts? And I'm not asking you to, pinpoint you think it's going to be this number or this score or anything like that. Any thoughts on where the PAC is at right now?
Well, when possible, I like to try to take lessons from the past. And the past of what we learned about the PAC from when it was the PAC-12 was that even with a great lineup of schools, a great lineup of programs, great competition, you're still going to have some weaknesses that you just have to account for because you're in the western part of the country, population, viewerships, all of that. If their plan is to have a Western-only conference, you're kind of making the same mistake that you've made in the past, but you're doing it with nothing against anyone, but less valuable programs than what you had in the past.
Sure.
So if you're aiming to get up into near the realm of where you were before by doing the same thing with perceived lower value programs, you're going to come short. And that's why I've just thrown one idea out there, but there's other good ones, but you're going to have to reach East. You're going to have to be able to showcase games at that noontime slot. You're going to have to reach out to the population markets while at the same time answering the major logistics problems of asking schools to transport all of their teams out west for games. Yeah. Not just football, not just basketball. I mean, those are what we care about as fans, but an athletic director has to care about all of that because now you've got to compete in recruiting and telling these kids, yeah, you're going to have to do that, but hey, it's not that big a deal, right? And they're going to look at you like you're crazy because you're talking about telling kids you're going to come back, 1, 2 in the morning and jump into class whenever you got class. So it's tough because we have to remember these are schools first still. And for a lot of these kids in these other sports, that comes first.
Well said. Well said. I mean, that is something I think that gets forgotten far too often. We do it here. We're focusing on the sport. We're focusing on football. And too often we don't talk about them being student athletes first. It's a great point. And to that point, I want to get your take maybe then on the Mountain West. So you talked about, the PAC maybe needing to look further east. We see the Mountain West did that for UTEP. Now that's Mountain Time Zone, so I guess that's not too further east, but that was the first edition that they had as a full member. Really fits right in there to where all their schools are. We just had a conversation with AD Center. He talked about how much closer they are to New Mexico, to GCU, than they are to really any of the Texas schools that they play, and it makes a lot of sense. But then when you look at NIU, kind of getting you into that central time zone for that time spot, it is football only, so they only have to worry about traveling for that one team. And that was something A.D. Frazier really focused on, when he talked about splitting up his sports, having football in one conference because it is the revenue generating sport, and then everybody else maybe more in a regionalized conference. And we're working on actually getting A.D. Frazier on the pod here really soon as well. Just wanted to get your take on maybe specifically NIU and what you think that does for, we'll use the Mountain West because they added them, but any Western, whether the PAC or the Mountain West, Western time zone conference here.
Yeah, real quick on the UTEP part, them being a Texas school is kind of a misleading thing because, as you point out, they are in the Mountain Time Zone and they are so far west that Texas is a huge state.
Yes.
It's a different calculation when you're dealing with them. So that was a unique and interesting pickup for them. But when you move to Northern Illinois, it's a very different situation. And I remember there was talk about them in Toledo in the beginning.
Right.
And I think that they were probably looking like, hey, full members. And these type of logistical problems, I think, got in the way. And so then it came down to, okay, joining just in football. And I think that was, Toledo, they've got a lot of connections there in the Ohio, Michigan. That's their conference. I think that wasn't good for them. But for Northern Illinois, this gets them out of those MAC games early in the week. That's the first thing that Mountain West really offered them.
Yeah.
Was better time to help them fill up their stadium. Remember, these guys got to sell tickets.
Yes.
They weren't selling tickets. So you guys are going to help them sell tickets, number one, to football, again. They are in the Chicago area in terms of, the DMAs and whatnot. And I think that is a good hint to look at how you solve the problem being a Western Conference trying to look East. What do you do? I think you kind of have to accept the limitations of the situation and find a solution like this. So that's how I see it, is it helps get them to the East without taking on all the problems of taking on an Eastern school.
Agree. To me, it's a massive win-win for both the school and the conference here. And you hit on the main points why it is so important for NIU to get their football back into, hopefully mainly Saturday. We'll have to see what the TV deal is here for the Mountain West. But getting them out of those, Wednesday night games. We all, as I said before, we all love Maction. We love watching Maction, but it does not help the attendance in the schools in any way. Steve, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, really as a follow-up to what you were just talking about, when JY and I have talked about the Mountain West and the PAC, I continue to beat the drum that Texas should be one of their main priorities, getting into the state of Texas. Now, for the PAC, there was some rumblings maybe a couple months ago that they were, looking. I guess they made an offer to Memphis, and it just wasn't a good offer. They were also looking at Tulane and maybe even like USF, a school in Florida. But a lot of that has really cooled down. And you mentioned having more time zones, having more time slots. So I've thrown this out there. I think Texas should be a big target getting into the state of Texas for both of those conferences, both the PAC and the Mountain West, and whether that's Texas State for the PAC, or we've talked about Tarleton State coming up from FCS to FBS as maybe a candidate for the Mountain West. My contention is you have a central time zone school, so it helps you with your time slots, and B, Texas is obviously, like you said, a huge state, a growing state, massive population growth, great TV markets, and people who are just excited and interested in college football, some donor money, for all of those reasons. And I'm just interested to see, do you agree with that? Do you think that maybe that's fool's gold? Maybe there's no valuable properties left in Texas to gobble up? I'm just curious as to your perspective on that.
Oh, no. Texas is a must. Even if it comes down to just we couldn't do the big play and we're just going to have to kind of settle for now. At that point, then I think not only do you take Texas State, but as you're pointing out, maybe you also take Tarleton State. It's one of those, like I also talk a lot about Sacramento State. Sacramento State and Tarleton State, in my opinion, are probably, other than the obvious ones like North Dakota State and whatnot, but two FCS programs up and coming that are probably your highest potential value just because of where they are.
Yeah.
But there's tiers in Texas. And from being what we've been doing here and talking with Texas fans, there's tiers. And they don't like to help each other in those tiers. And so when people talk about maybe mixing a Texas State and a UTSA, because they're so close, it's this natural rivalry. Yes, for all the reasons above, except for the fact that it would be UTSA bringing Texas State up to their level.
Yes.
And what I'm talking about like how much they make, what they can do in the money game. Mm-hmm. And if Texas State wants that, and UTSA will probably never admit it, but I can't see them wanting to do that. Like, look at what Texas State can do with what they got. I mean,
right.
Do you really want to go against them on an even market? San Marcos is like one of those, the epitome of college towns.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to take them on evenly. So, to me, I look at that and say, I would go with like a UTSA in a northern Texas.
Yeah.
Northern Texas is right on the periphery of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. That's a must. You have to be there. If you're trying to be big-time football, you have to be there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We actually had a commenter ask if you could speak to Sacramento State. You just did that, so I don't need to ask that question. The last thing I just want to ask you, and then we're going to let you go because it's been a little longer than I expected. You talked a little bit ago about sources, and we all talked about sources, and they kind of give you maybe what they want to, and maybe they're feeding you just a line, and again, not a lie, but a line. And so today, and this came up in the chat a little bit earlier, there was some reporting from Front Office Sports about ESPN, Fox, CBS still being open to participating, I believe was the exact wording used, open to participating in some sort of bid or process with the PAC media rights. Did you glean anything out of that report? I have some opinions, but I don't want to state them yet. I wanted to hear if you had anything from that reporting.
Yeah, and to give a little shout on that, that's Amanda Kristovich from Front Office. And
Thank you. She's
quite
fantastic.
frankly my favorite.
Yep.
Mainly because she actually comes down into the trenches with us and mixes it up a little bit at times, and you don't find that otherwise.
Yeah.
So she's a favorite of mine. I always like to give her a shout out when possible.
Yeah.
But she's also very good at what she does. She's the person that I go to whenever this stuff starts to go on in DC, and we were talking about that earlier. When these meetings start to happen there, she will be the one that will be there giving us the day-to-day, the minute-to-minute reportings of what's going on. And so I take what she has to say very seriously on that. And I do believe that those are some of the networks that, like the PAC and Octagon are probably talking to.
Yeah.
But also another thing that people need to know that some of these writers are very good at doing is there's things that they're told, and some of that they're allowed to tell us, and some of it they're not. But what they can do is they can get creative with their writing, and if you're doing this for a while or you're just good at it, you can glean things from the way they write stuff. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what she was doing. There were certain words in there. The one that I pointed out was participating. The general sense of participating in something is that you're participating in someone else's activity.
Yeah.
Someone else is putting it on. I tend to pull from all of that what she was saying is that those schools are those networks are interested in certain aspects of what the conference might have to offer. I don't see them as main partners, though, from what she had to say.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know you and I were kind of DMing on that a little bit of what was said and how it was said, and she actually replied, I believe, to one of your posts as well. And I appreciate you bringing, I should have said her name. She is fantastic. One of the few that I trust 100%. If our viewers are not following Amanda, you absolutely need to do that. She is phenomenal.
She's covered all the business issues of college sports, the labor, NLRB stuff,
yes,
the employment issues. She's been deep into all of it.
Yeah.
So, and Front Office Sports doesn't put their stuff behind a wall, so at least for now,
yes,
so people can have access to it without paying. So
absolutely, I don't do the paywall thing. That's for sure. I just not something I'm interested in. So, well, Immaculate, hey, we thank you so much. We took a little more of your time than I expected, but thank you so much for coming on. I know our viewers enjoyed it. Up over 100 here easily, chiming in, listening to what you have to say. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely, man. When you're having fun, it goes by quickly, and it went by quickly. So anytime, man, just hit me up. I had a good time with you guys, and hang out and chat. And if folks want to ask questions there, I saw a couple more pop up. We'll chat away.
Very good. Yeah, if you want to hit some in the comments section, that'd be great. If not, I can't keep up with it. I'm not as good as some, but I appreciate your time, sir. We'll talk to you later.
It was great having you on.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks again.
Yep, you too.